Good morning to everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to have people filtering in and out over the course of the day. There's not a lot of early risers under 25 in Clemson this morning. They're storing up energy for tonight and tomorrow, and they're recapturing energy from last night, I suppose. But John Hannon here, director of the Brooke T. Smith Launchpad, and I just want to do a very quick intro. You'll be seeing me over the course of the remainder of the day here. I just want to do a very quick intro and thank a few people before we get started. First of all, we and I report into the president's office, so I always give homage to Jim Clements. This was an initiative that he undertook, was to get this space built out and to promote entrepreneurship on the Clemson campus. It's very rare that entrepreneurship reports into the president's office at any university, and so we feel honored with regard to that. That's an unusual picture of Jim Clements, but I think it's better than a standard headshot because I have a story behind this. I was at a softball game and observed Jim and Grace, his daughter, coming up from their seats, and the gist of it is he went to the back of the line at the concession stand. And he doesn't own the university, he runs the university, he runs all the stadiums, he runs everything. He could very well have had somebody deliver something to their seat. He could have went to the side door, the side window, and gotten some preferential treatment there, but he literally went to the back of the line and talked to the people in line. And so that, to me, is a reflection of Jim's character, and we're fortunate to have him here at Clemson. Also, I report directly to Max Allen as Chief of Staff, and Max is an unbelievable guy, and he and I went through a lot to get this whole idea to where it is today, and we battled a lot of different obstacles, people and facilities and all kinds of other stuff, but our leaks are resolved, our fences are mended, and we're where we need to be, so we're always grateful to Max. He's going to probably appear at some point here today. And I do want to thank our staff. Kimberly, on the far right, your right, has been the point person for this and organized it, and she's done all of our symposiums. We got one after the next here this fall. We're doing medical devices in a month, and we're doing sports entrepreneurship the month after that, and we're doing capital allocators the month after that. So a lot of work. We'll have 120 VIP subject matter experts cycling through over the course of this fall. Each one of them, I'll close my eyes, needs white glove treatment. I won't want to look at anybody in particular, but just getting everybody here from across the country. And so we want to salute her and thank her. Maggie is here today. She's the backbone of the Launchpad. Amazing help, steps up. She has a career previously in diplomacy, and so she's just attuned to everything. Her nickname is the Periscope because she always is up looking out where the submarine is going, make sure we don't crash, and make sure we get to land where we're supposed to land. Michelle is not here today, but she's an amazing member of our team. Susan is in the back, and she's been with us for 2 or 3 weeks, and is and so forth. And then Liam is our digital media person, and he'll be taking pictures of you and so forth over the course of the day. So last but not least, I want to thank Lindsay and Woody. This is their second go-through. And, to pull something like this off, it takes a lot of work and a lot of preparation and a lot of time. So we're just super grateful to all these people, great Clemson people. And please speak up. If you have any needs over the course of the day, make us aware of them. We're here to help you and to be as hospitable as we possibly can. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lindsay and Woody, and they'll get us rolling here. I would ask, I took Tyler. He introduced himself. Stand up, Tyler. You're putting it on the spot right away. Mechanical engineer, junior, from Goose Creek, South Carolina. And he came in and, man, oh man, I just take my hat off to him and give him credit. So he's looking for an internship for next summer. He has a 4.0, and he made it through statics and dynamics the first time. So if you know anything about Clemson and mechanical engineering, It's a tremendous accomplishment. So we just met this morning, but I would encourage any alumni here to intentionally seek out students. Sometimes they can be a little shy. He wasn't, but sometimes they can be a little shy and do try to help them. So that being said, we are Zooming for our speakers. Just one quick reminder. So please do hold the microphone close to your mouth and run the risk of over voluming the group beneath the speakers. But we're going to have a great day today, and hopefully it'll be a lot of new friendships and good will come out of it. So Sophia's here. She's an amazing one of our former interns as well. So that being said, here's the mic. I'm pretty much done for the day. I might have to yell at people to come back and do stuff like that, but thank you so much for coming. We really appreciate you.
Hello, everyone. I'm so happy to see smiling faces at 8:30. So thank you for being here, and excited to see a lot more students throughout the day as well. Thank you, John, and the whole team, really helping put this on. It is definitely a feat to put on a conference like this and to bring in fabulous speakers. And we're going to have a fun day, very inspirational day also for the alumni. That's one of my favorite things, really kind of coming back, is to see all of the students and the excitement around, life sciences, of whatever step they want to take after graduating from Clemson. So we have a lot of great speakers today from all backgrounds for sure, but the majority of them have one thing in common. They're part of the Clemson family. So to really understand the Clemson family is something really special. So if you are a student in the audience, that's your connection to start talking about Clemson and then talk about career. Ask questions about, hey, what was your first job? Because a lot of times it was not this big lofty job that they're talking about today. It might have been a janitor. It may have been an intern. So, you do have to start somewhere, and really excited to learn and to explore different career paths today. But it should be a fun day, and thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Woody, also, and I'll pass it over to you.
Thanks, Lindsay. And what I'm going to do, my main objective here just for a few minutes is to really sort of provide a backdrop for the rest of the day, really sort of talk about and lay the groundwork for the ecosystem, if you will, that sort of is the overlay for pharma, biotech, and med device. And then our panelists are going to speak to different elements of that ecosystem. But most of all, what we want to do today is obviously one of our primary, if not our primary objective, is to help students and also faculty, the community, Clemson alums, Clemson affiliated folks, and whoever else wants to be involved to sort of understand the industry, but also to, as Lindsay mentioned, network. I was talking to somebody earlier this morning, and I think there's a lot of synergy between people that are starting new businesses that can connect with individuals that are here today that are doing similar things. And who knows, maybe an opportunity to collaborate. I know internships are dear to students, not just the knowledge of what's available, but the connection. And I've already talked to a couple of people and heard last evening at our dinner, our panelist dinner, that there are, in fact, operators of companies here looking to hire interns. So if you're a student and you're here, you're probably in good luck already for getting up and making the effort. But yeah, this is going to be a fun day. And like I said, I hope to give you at least an overall understanding of the industry and the components in the next few minutes, and then we'll turn it over to our panelists. For me, we'll talk a little bit about my journey, but what I do is I'm actually a College of Science grad from Clemson, MUSC, graduate degree, PhD in pharmaceutics. Started on the development side of the pharma industry. And through happenstance, I'll talk about my aha moment that changed my career, i.e. networking, and put me onto the business side. And today I'm a president and CEO of a venture capital funded British heritage immunology company, phase 2 company. We're treating autoimmune disease and allergic disease. So with that said, what I'm going to cover in the next 10 or 15 minutes is really sort of just talking about what do we mean when we use the terms pharma, biotech, med, device. What do they really mean in their basic form? There are a lot of similarities and synergies between the three, a lot of common terms. There are obviously some unique elements of each of those that set them apart, but there are a lot of common ground that we'll refer to during the course of the day. What does the ecosystem look like? And what are the potential career opportunities there? You know, our title today is about the business of science, but really and truly, one thing we're going to try to impress upon you today is there's an opportunity in this industry for people from all walks of life, people with education degrees, business degrees, marketing, nursing, science, you name it. There's a place for you in the industry if you so choose. Collaboration is imperative. When I say collaboration, there's networking, there's communication. I'm going to share with you through my career the number of jobs that I've transitioned to that were a result of me knowing someone from earlier in my career, having met them as a one-off that created the opportunity. And then I'll talk a little bit about my journey, not that you're interested in me, but just sort of to use it as an example of how I parlayed my undergrad and graduate degree into a career in what I consider to be a great industry. Next slide, please. So you can read for yourself, but basically the difference, the pharmaceutical industry is companies and institutions. We'll talk about, like I said, the ecosystem that are involved in either as a fully integrated model or at various pieces is discovery, development, ultimately commercialization of medications that are used to diagnose, treat, and prevent disease in humans and animals. Biotech is very similar in that in its purest sort of definition, it merges biology. So you're typically using a biological process, maybe as opposed to a synthesized or organic process to, again, develop diagnostic tools, therapeutics, and what have you that benefit not just human health, but also in agrochemical and other areas and other aspects of life. And medical device, it used to be a number of years ago, medical device was hardware and instrumentation is being used in the pharmaceutical space, whether it be for diagnosis, treatment, rehabilitation, what have you. But as technology has advanced, there's been a coming together of medical device, miniaturization, automation that has brought sort of the therapeutic side together. So there's a lot of sort of intermingling, if you will, of delivery, syringes, auto injectors, all sorts of types of medical device innovations that are delivering therapeutics in a more meaningful way. Next slide. So this is sort of distribution. When you talk about biotech, we're obviously going to focus down on the therapeutics and veterinary side. You'll hear some folks today talk about analytical sciences, diagnostics as we go through panel discussions, but it's a broad term that stretches across a number of different elements of the industry. Next slide. So we're going to talk here again, we're going to dive into pharma biotech, some of the nuances of the ecosystem, career opportunities. I'll touch a little bit on funding because you'll hear a number of our panels today talk about funding. And if you're in the biotech space, if you aren't raising money, you will have to raise money. And for those of us that run companies and even the smaller companies, you never stop trying to raise funds to advance your operation. And again, we'll talk about the importance of collaboration. Next slide. This is a really busy slide, but really what I wanted to do here is to talk about the drug discovery process. So on the left-hand side, you have sort of, if you will, identifying targets for treating disease. You have some sort of discovery process, high throughput screening, phenotypic discovery, what have you, that ultimately brings candidates in to look at those targets to see if the new entity or the existing entity you're working with can treat a disease. And then you move from left to right into sort of phase one. You have preclinical animal work where you have animal models, you have to do tox work, you have to do exposure work. You move into phase one, which is the first time you go into humans to see if the molecule or the candidate you have identified is safe and able to move on into the drug development process. And phase 2 is the first time you typically get into patients. There's some exceptions with oncology where you have sort of an intermingling of phase 1 and 2. And you are looking initially in phase 2 for a signal in a disease. So whatever you're measuring as an endpoint for the disease, you're saying, does this drug actually create that? Is it safe? There's typically a phase 2B, which is dose ranging. So if you have a signal in phase 1 or a POC study, you go broader, you look at a broader range of doses, more patients. And then ultimately phase 3, it's usually a series of studies that you have to complete as registrational trials to actually file with the FDA or with CBER or CDER, depending on the qualification of your molecule, and then commercialization. So you can see sort of the probability of success. You can see along the way the amount of funding. These numbers are kind of light because you can talk about billions of dollars to go from looking at multiple candidates to narrowing it down and taking it through. It depends on what you're chasing from an overall indication standpoint. Next slide. This is really a cartoon. If you look at the top left, you can see this is sort of just a pictorial, and this is the first slide where I wanted to point out to you, if you look at and dive into each of these functions, you go from research, you go to experimentation, you ultimately have a candidate, you move into production, packaging, you go all the way through testing, and ultimately into commercial space. People think of the industry, and it's easy to understand, things like Pfizer Pharmaceuticals or AbbVie, that's what we call a fully integrated pharmaceutical company. They do all of these things from A to Z. But you're going to see in a moment that the percent of drugs that they actually take to market that were internally discovered and taken all the way through is only a small portion of what's being done. So there's a whole community of discovery companies, service companies, consulting companies, service providers that do the clinical trials that make up this entire ecosystem. I mean, thousands upon thousands of companies. Within each of those, there are jobs that are scientific. There's sales, marketing, finance, human resources, legal. And that's where the point we're going to try to make today is that no matter what you're studying, if you're interested in the industry, there's a place for you in the pharmaceutical biotech space. Next slide. So this is a little bit more of a drill down, if you will. If you look at the biotech industry and you look at the top left, I think the part that people that aren't in the industry don't realize is how many service providers are key to the ecosystem. I run a company that's got 20-something employees. We have 50 subcontractors. And you go to Pfizer, they probably have 5,000 subcontractors. And every one of those subcontractors has different elements of running a business. Business people, like I said, all the disciplines in a typical business. You got to have funding. You got venture capital that's got to fund these private entities if they're not public, and all sorts of other things that go alongside it. When you get into R&D, into the actual development process, you see all the disciplines there. You've got, it sort of tracks what I showed you earlier: discovery, development, management, medical affairs. Within each of those groups, you have all sorts of different types of educational backgrounds. And it goes on and on. As you get into later phase, you've got operations, manufacturing, quality, all sorts of things that sort of support that. And then you get in the commercial space, you got your more traditional sales and marketing, all the operations, product support, business development, et cetera. Next slide. So this is just sort of a cartoon, if you will, that, as I mentioned earlier, if you start on the left and talk about how do you fund a new enterprise that has discovered something they want to take into early development, there's all sorts of financial vehicles there, typically early on, smaller amount of money. They're angel investors, they're seed capital. Some people self-fund. Some people have a rich uncle that wants to fund them. And then as you go from left to right through development, you have to go to bigger, deeper pocketed venture capitalists, other sorts of partnerships with big pharma that have deep pockets. But along the way, as you go through development and discover that you have something that's developable and has commercial opportunity, the amount of money you need, the risk you take, and all that sort of changes as you go. Next slide. So this is what I got to. What is surprising, I think, to most people is the percent of assets that make up the pipeline of a company. I know this is fairly small. You have Pfizer at the top. So you've got 166 and plus 105 drugs in their pipeline being developed. And this might be a little on the low side, but according to this study, 105 of that total came from external sources. So they found them and brought them in from academia. They brought them in from a small biotech. So it's meant to show you that Pfizer, what they bring to the market, they certainly innovate themselves, but they rely heavily on other collaborations and innovators. And the same holds true for, you go here, you've got the top 25 or 30. There's probably a couple of hundred commercial stage. Yes, question? Yeah, so if you look at the corporate profile of any of these big companies, they will publish what they're interested in. So it goes both ways. Obviously, the small guy is always chasing the big guy, and the big guy is paying attention to what's available and what they're interested in. Yeah. A lot of back and forth and meeting and posturing and sharing information. Courtship. Yeah, they're dating. The key is to get these guys to write a check, right? Which is what a lot of us deal with every day. Next slide. So to your point, that courtship turns into a lot of different types of partnerships. You have, shared development, you have licensing, you have options to take a license, you have co-development. There are endless numbers of partnership structures that when you negotiate finance, business development, legal, and the scientific team is sitting behind that to sort of frame what we're working on. Next slide. So just listen, this is my journey. I'm an older guy, so I've been around for a while. But the point I want to make here is it starts with Clemson undergrad, MUSC, I mentioned that, Shearing Plow. But then as I went from Big Pharma to Service AI, did some other education along the way, and then Shire, I became a company builder. As they came into the U.S., I helped them build their U.S. presence, and then I was part of a spin out of Supernus, blah, 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 blah. I don't know what I'm doing today, but those boxes that are marked as network enabled, the point I'm making is I got a job in each of those companies because I had networked. I met somebody through the industry. I knew somebody from Clemson. And as, of course, you go on in your career, you get a recycling effect of people that you work with. For instance, I went to Lupin to work for a guy that I worked with at AI. He became president of the company. It's the importance of networking and just meeting people, shaking a hand, comparing notes. And you'll hear that theme, I think, as we go through the entire day. Next slide. I think you got to hit it one more time. So then you look back and you say, I had the honor and the opportunity to be a part of some pretty cool things. So these are the products that I had a piece in developing with a team. I either did the transaction, the financing, or I led a team. Some you'll recognize. A lot of ADHD, CNS. Joe Mito is a kidney cancer product. And I'm sure everybody that's going to be on the panel today has a similar sort of story, but you sort of reflect back and go, wow, that was dynamic and fun. But that's why we do what we do, is to bring new medications to patients in need. And next slide. And I just encourage you, one thing about networking and opportunity is to develop an understanding of different disciplines involved in a business. Understand the big picture. I think entrepreneurship mindset does this for you. Is understanding, how to do risk assessment, looking at competition, financials, obviously the operation, the scientific part, the market differentiation. Anytime you have an opportunity to put your foot in that bucket, it's going to serve you well. Next slide. That may be the last slide. Oh, no, this is my favorite slide. I can't believe I forgot it. To you students, and I think everyone that's been in the industry and done different things will attest to it. Listen, you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You don't have to always have the greatest degree from the most reputable institution. There's a lot to be said for preparation, showing up, asking questions, You can be stern in your opinion, and you should be, but being professional and doing so goes a long way. Because it may seem like a big industry, but it actually is very small. And you don't want to burn bridges unless you have to. But there's a lot to be said for effort and just showing up and being prepared and being present and acting like you and behaving like you are committed to whatever it is that you have in front of you. But I use this a lot. I think I stole this from either John Hannon or from Keith Hudgens here at Clemson. That's the bit of advice I would leave to the students as you think about your career choices.